like to welcome to the show from the Trust a Game of Greed, Jake Chocholous. How are you today, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks for having me on the show, brother.
Absolutely, man. It was this crazy because when the show first came out, it was kind of not like really talked about. And then you kind of got a week into the show and people started watching because you have to have that binge format. And people
Yeah.
started collecting. Did you see that same kind of rise over the first couple of weeks where the back half of the season was like more talked about than the front half?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the cast members were like, "Oh, is it going to go like I don't know, like so after the first 2 days it went to number 4 on Netflix. After 3 days it went to number 2. So it just took a couple days for it to actually just take off. It was only a few days into week 2. Oh my gosh, it was so kinetic in terms of just people talking about the first 4 episodes because you see a lot of me in the first 4 episodes. They paint me out to be a certain way in the first 4 episodes, and some other characters. You see me and Julie's thing unfold. But yeah, definitely week 2 as things rose. And the reason they kind of did that is because, Netflix does a lot of data analytics on their shows, kind of like Squid Game, right? And so they wanted to know with all this data they had, it showed that the trust was going to do pretty well. And so that's why they batch episodes, much like they did Squid Game. They went 4, 3, and then a finale. And, for the week of the finale, which was, I think, last week or so, however long ago it was now, everything's gone so fast since it's been happening. People were just chattering about it like crazy. And now that it's all out, you're still getting people they waited for the entire thing to drop so they could just binge the whole thing.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed that I knew that they had faith in the show because sometimes you get a full drop at once. And it's not
Yes.
that they don't have faith in those shows. They just don't think that it's going to be as when I saw the rollout of this, I knew something was coming with this one. All right, let's take the people back to the beginning though. What was that? Let's talk about the casting process. What was that like for you?
The casting process was really unique because I had a young lady casting producer from LA who reached out to me one random afternoon on fall of 2022. And she was like, "Hey, man, we love your socials. Like, you're a former veteran Black Hawk pilot, you're a fitness guy. I think you'd really fit this genre of guy we're trying to put on this TV show." And I'm like, "Well, what's the TV show?" They're like, "Well, we can't tell you what it is, but it's just this social experiment. It's like Big Brother." I'm like, that tells me nothing. I'm thinking MTV's Real World or something, people punching through drywall or living in Big Brother. I'm like, I can't dedicate 3 months, bro. And they're like, "Well, we're going to start filming March of 2023. And we really thought you'd be a good fit." So that whole process starts. And I'm not going to lie, brother, it went from every single interview I had like 6 or 7. It was like me talking to a casting producer, a casting director, whatever. And the next day, I'd always write a nice little note to them. "Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Just letting you know, finish the interview. It was really great." And they're like, "Bro, we already pushed you to the next round already." And I was just like, what is going on? So what it looks like to me is, out of the thousands of people they were going through, I mean, dude, this is the first show they've ever done of this real type of genre on Netflix for a reality show. And they were very specific of the type of individuals they wanted to show. And I could tell, like, it was the tattooed expatriate Captain America feel that they wanted. And how I portrayed myself and my socials was one way, but that was my old socials that I think they found me on, was one of my old accounts, because right before the show aired, well, right before we filmed in March of 2023, I had started a new channel, my Man Up Daily channel on TikTok, which is like 120,000, and my Instagram, which is basically the same thing, but under my name, Jake Chocholous. And so right before we started filming, I had started those channels and dedicated them and built them over the past year. And then the show came out. But the casting process for me, I'm not going to lie. And I know this is an anomaly. Like, it's very unorthodox. Like, I blasted through the interviews. Like, they knew I was the guy they wanted for this show for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things. Obviously, it being a social experiment, it was very unique because you have different people in all walks of life, and that's how the game unfolds over the 8 episodes. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what
Exactly.
you're walking. We're not walking into the house with 10 Jakes. You know what I mean? Like the
No.
game probably plays out a whole different. Everybody probably keeps all their money. Everybody's cool. We're going on kumbaya with their lives. But
Yep.
that's I think what's made the show unique. So going into the show, what did you know about it? I mean, obviously, I said they didn't tell you much about it, but did you know anything about the premise of the game or anything like that heading into it?
I knew nothing. Like I literally
That's
knew nothing.
awesome.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything until I mean, so I we I didn't know anything until I walked up into that cliff and they pulled the blindfold off of my eyes. I didn't know until maybe 3, 4 days before we flew out that I was going to the Dominican. So the moment they were like, I had the executive producer on the line like this with me. He's like, Jake, I want you for the show. Are you dedicated to come? And I'm like, yeah, but bro, I don't know what we're doing. Like, what's going on? He's like, well, it's not a love show and it's not a survival show. And I said, good, man, I've done enough of that in my military career. I don't want to do any of that. And he's like, this is an experiment and you're going to go to the Dominican. And I'm like, okay, cool. So packing for nice weather. And then I had to go through all these wardrobe producers are like looking at all of our clothes, make sure we have labeled. So until then, we got to the Dominican and we're held in quarantine for like 3 or 4 days. I'm staring at walls and want to just like slam my head through the toilet seat. And it's like, I didn't know anything. Like they blindfolded us for our first confessional interview at the shooting site, but I didn't see anywhere where we were until they fully pulled the blindfolds off, and I was in line with the entire cast, and they started shooting as we were walking out onto the edge of the cliff where we first met Brooke. That was it.
All right. So what were the first few days in the house like for you, and kind of, getting acclimated to everything that was happening inside the house?
I'm like a pretty big extrovert, so I like meeting new people. It was a really cool experience for me to put away our phone and get to know everyone. So, I mean, immediately they don't really show. I ran up the stairs and I was like, "We made it!" And I think I walked straight into the bar, start talking to Jewels, and we just started. Everyone's just vibing, having a good time, having some drinks, eating some food. They had that really nice setup for us, and I'll tell you what, like that first day, first 3 quarters of that day was straight grinding and talking to people, just getting to know everybody. And like, that's, in my career, like I just, I tend to mesh pretty well with people. And like, so it was just really easy to get to know everybody. And I spent time talking to Mama Jay, Bryce, Tolu, Winnie, like everybody. I mean, you see me upstairs trying on in the evening. This is when we're still getting to know each other. And I'm trying on like Winnie's high heels or whatever. And it was like, such a joke, man. We were just goofing off, but that was the way to get to know people. Just kind of show your goofy self. But the first 24 hours maybe were like pretty harmless. We were swimming in the pool, chilling, just getting to know each other, man. It was a really good time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really like gravitated towards your character and liking your character. And I say character, I know it's you, but you know what I mean.
Right,
But
right,
watching the
right,
show,
right.
was whenever you're trying on the heels, I was like, man, anybody willing to try that is got to be fun. You know what I mean? Like and first off, as everybody says, it's not easy. It's not easy. I don't know how women do it,
It was not easy.
but obviously the game, like it becomes a game really, really fast, right? With the
Oh yeah,
elimination of Joel's, like that to me, like I think one of my favorite scenes is anytime anybody's eliminated, kind of the reactions to you, especially early in the show, between
oh yeah.
you and Brian and some of the people that were like, we're all just going to be kumbaya and finish with all the money together. And everybody else is like, no, we got other plans. How did
Yeah.
that kind of shift your gameplay? And, or maybe like, did it make you realize, oh, we're here for a game type of thing after that first elimination?
So I think that's a misconception like a lot of America sees is like the guys were just playing kumbaya. We never were doing that. The very first day was like, hey, let's genuinely get to know some of these people before we just start clipping them out of the house. Like that was like the thing. And I was like, if you're a turd, we're going to snuff you out and we're going to get you out of the house. You got to understand our backgrounds. Me, Brian, and Gasper come from being around a lot of people. We take care of people. We're empathetic. We're not just here to shotgun blast people out of the house. We're trying to use some like tactical strategy where the girls, and I have to say girls because there were 5 individuals who clearly wanted to segregate the house immediately. I mean, that happened almost immediately for whatever reason in the house. So, I mean, in terms of like reactions, like, what was your question again? How you worded that? Say that one more
Just
time.
basically, how did that kind of, once that first elimination happened, how did that kind of shift where maybe your
Yeah.
head was out gameplay wise?
It just showed us so what it really started to show were some real personalities because in the first 24 hours, everyone's like, no, we're cool. Like no one's really given us a reason to like get rid of anybody. But then you see Tolu having a hemorrhoid over the fact that Jewels didn't like it canceled her vote. I mean, he could have canceled my vote for all I would have cared. It's so early. Like literally you could tell that Simone and him and Jewels did the best job that they could on like with little information they have based off of like $2,500. Like, who cares? And then what you found is like everyone got bent out of shape real quick. And the moment that they voted Joel's out, I was just like, are you effing kidding me, bro? And so, you see Brian storm off. He did that. And then I went right after him. I just said, what the hell? I said, what the hell are we doing? Like, I can understand getting rid of someone if they're like really like toxic to the house and they're very kinetic, but no one displayed that. And the girls' reason was, he's just not trustworthy. I can't tell. I'm like, bro, you don't even know this guy. Even though he says he's a stripper, like, can we look past that? And then I didn't find out he was a cop until the trailer came out for the show. So when I just started talking, me and him are super tight, Jewels. And he believes too, like it wasn't handled the right way. The girls were really vicious, vindictive, and they were judging everyone based off of how trustworthy they thought he was. So really, what it showed me is that obviously we're here to play a game, but it rubbed me the wrong way. And it just said, okay, now I'm starting to see some real characters come out in here, because clearly people are here just for the money. And where, yes, I'm here for the money, I wanted the right people to get the money.
Yeah, and that's, to me, is one of the things you notice. Like, there's, especially watching it back, and obviously, and that's the thing that I think people forget. Like, how long was this shot over?
We filmed for maybe 2.5 to 3 weeks. The
Right.
entire trip and everything was maybe like a month long, with travel and the quarantine and everything. But it was probably 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks of straight shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen plenty of interviews where everybody's talking about, like, you're shot basically the entire day. So, like, people don't understand, like, this is being edited. You have 8 hours of footage from thousands of hours, or not, maybe not thousands, but lots of hours of footage that aren't shown. So obviously you're going to be, certain people are going to be cut a certain way. We need villains. We need people to root for. We need people to be against. But it was early on in that process. You see that. And then, of course, one of the most talked about things for poor old Jake here was the entire ranking scene, right? That entire, you went from, I could say you probably went from everybody's like, oh man, we like this guy, to, well,
this dude's a straight doucher. Yeah.
Let's talk. What was going through your head in that moment? And maybe if you, looking back on it, watching it, what might you have changed about how you approached that entire thing?
So again, I'm going to, predicate on what you just talked about. The audience sees, you don't see 95% of what's going on for these events. You only see maybe 5%, maybe 1%. And so everyone's judging you based off of something. And then they cut you and use sound bites and put you in certain situations that you weren't even in when it happened. So they painted me out to be like this bad guy when I did this whole voting thing. You got to understand, this is a whole house of individuals that were highly emotional the entire time. They even named the second episode after me. Why is everyone so freaking emotional? Because I think logically, I'm just trying to be, I was never malicious in my decision-making process. You also have to understand, when we did the lineup thing, we had like 5 or 6 rounds before those rounds. It was like, who's the funniest? Who has the biggest personality? Who dresses the best? And so you don't see any of that fun stuff. We're all having a good time. And then they're like, who's the smartest? And I'm thinking, again, this is about 36 hours into us getting to know people. And, I just started gravitating towards the front. I wasn't like, I'm in the front, bitches, eat it. I wasn't like that at all. And everyone, we were talking to people, and, I was looking at people. Are you cool with that? They were like, yeah, Jake, you flew Blackhawks. Like, you've done all this stuff. You've managed billions of dollars of equipment. You're like a military. Yeah, for sure. That you're a pretty smart guy. And I just happened to get up towards the front. Like, it just ended up that way. Then you had Julie strolling up there, and then she was like hard pressed to tell me I'm the smartest in the house. And they don't show the little exchange other than the fact when I enter telling her that I have a law degree. But so she ends up telling me I have a master's, Jake. And I'm just like, so do I. Like, so do I. And she's like, in what? And I'm like, in law. And then you should have seen the look on her face. Look like she got hit by a truck. And she was like, oh my God. So I was like, and I wasn't going to let her do this, because earlier in the house, I knew at this point, like between me and Julie, like she was trying to make herself look like I'm just going to play this guy the whole time. And I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen. I told her earlier in the house, I was like, I'm not a simp. You're talking to a real man now. So like, now I'm going to show you. So when we were lining up, it was just like, it wasn't malicious. It was just like, I felt like from what I had done, logically looking at everybody else and what we've done, again, it's not being cocky. It's just me thinking black and white. I'm like, okay, sure. Could I put myself second and let Julie take number 1? Yeah, I could have. Would I go back and do that? Still, no, because this was an ego thing for Julie. It wasn't an ego thing for me. It was just me saying, like, this is me looking at my credentials. Now, when it came to the leadership role, the same thing happened. Like the same thing. I'm looking down the line. Simone's like, stay there. People are like, oh yeah, dude, like for sure. Like said it makes it look like everyone was just like, you're a dick. And then Mama J's like, misogyny. And it's just like man, it's solely blow up proportion. And even then they bring Winnie up because Winnie was definitely the alpha female leader of the house. And then you had me. And with Winnie, we looked at each other because Julie goes, I think Winnie should be up there. She was just doing that to stir the pot. Again, had looked down at everybody. It's like, are we cool with this? Like, the thing is, brother, no one wanted to be in a leadership role in that house. No one wanted to take responsibility for anything. That's all I've done my entire career. So when everyone's like, just like, oh, we're kind of pussyfoot around, then I'm kind of like, well, I'll go take charge and help the group. Like I'll go do it. I'll put myself in that position. And even looking at Winnie, she goes, no, King, stay right there. Like stay there. Like, it's like, okay, cool. So I stayed there, but it made me look like I'm like standing there. Like I'm not going to move. Even when that soundbite, when Julie's like, I think Winnie should go. And I'm like, no, that's not how that happened, man. So I mean, they paint me out to be that way, and I know that's a long explanation, but the audience needs to know that, and I think my fan base already knows that. They know like how I would treat things in situations. But truly, I can tell you, you even hear Brian talk about it. He's like, I didn't want to be in a leadership position, blah blah. He's a former Marine, and so many people in that house would like wanted to get pissed off and say something when they weren't put into position of like jeopardy. And so I wouldn't have done it any other way. And actually, I say that putting myself way out in the limelight like that, not intentionally thinking that was going to be the fallout from all this emotional train wreck, that actually ended up helping me in the long run because I was so far out there that it was like, it actually highlighted other people to focus on in the house. They were like, oh, we're always going to get rid of Jake, but just not yet because he has relationships with so many other people. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I noticed as well. It's one of the biggest misconceptions I think of the entire show because yeah, sure, in that scene, do you come off as a dick to the audience? Absolutely. But the flip side about it is not. I wasn't really sure at what point it happened in the show. So you like 30, 36, maybe 48, whatever hours that is into the thing. It's really hard to. I would love to hear every person that was there idea of what they would have done. Julie, if she was in your shoes, would have put herself number one. Winnie maybe probably does the same. I'm not going to put words in people's mouth here. I will never do that. But sure. I can assure you a lot of these people would have been in the top 3 if they were doing it themselves.
So let me say something about this. Is really unique about the lineup for the leadership role, like who you could trust. That was the one that everyone lost their minds. When I did that, so many people read it. Twitter's like, oh, you could have done it this way. You could have done it. I'm like, bro, if you farted in the wrong direction of somebody in this house, they were like, get him out of the house, So everything I did had strategy. Everything. Even when people are like, Jake's so stupid, like there's strategy. I had Brian Gasper up at the front. Why? Because I actually trusted them. The 5 women in the house had eliminated the other brother in the house. And it's like, dude, who do you think I'm going to trust you guys? But yet I still put Winnie and Tolu up at the kind of front because I knew I could already sense at that point, like they were there to really start to get people out of the house. I strategically put Julie in the center because I'm like, we had a good relationship at that point, a day and a half in the house. And I'm like, I think she'll understand why I'm doing that. It wouldn't matter if I put her wherever. Julie didn't see it that way. She wanted to be up at the front and wanted me to show how much I cared about her. But I'm like, Julie, kind of work with me here because people are like, well, if you would have put Brian and Gasper in the back, that would have been better. I said, no, it wouldn't have. These girls weren't stupid. If I put Lindsay and Grandma J all up at the front, those girls would have been like, this dude's just putting us up at the front to milk it. And it didn't matter who I put, whoever. Simone understood it. She knew why I put her at the bottom because I didn't want her at the bottom, but she was like a good soul that could understand. Now, Lindsay, I did put at the bottom because in the 36 hours we were there, brother, like nobody knew her. Nobody trusted her. And they all communicated that directly to me. Plus, at the campfire, she even confessed about like, they're cheating. And so I was like, it makes sense. It wasn't vindictive. It was just purely logical. And then we had the huge blowout in the bathroom, which you saw a fraction of that too. It was way worse. But yeah, that was my whole thought. It didn't matter how you did it. I was going to be crucified.
as you watch the show back, and as I watch the show, towards the end, we see Lindsay, and speaks to that because you guys were playing the poker game, and it was just like Lindsay's name obviously came out. Then it started to realize, oh, Lindsay's playing both sides of the fence, which, first off, it's a game. I try to make everybody remember this is a game at the same time. When people are being voted out, you have your back against the wall, you have to do things. However, how shocked were you when you found out that Jasper was the one that was the helping hand in eliminating Lindsay?
So I found out moments after, like Gasper
Oh,
pulled me and Brian. They don't show me and Brian Gasper having enough of our conversations. They focus more on the girls because they're like the drama tornado train wrecks in the house. So they got to show them, but they don't show me and Brian Gasper always talking chess strategy. And right after, he's like, guys, I voted Lindsay off. She's going to kill me. And I'm like, what, bro? Like, and he was like, well, what? He's like, well, think about it. You know the devil in front of you. You don't know the devil you don't know. And at that point, Lindsay, I don't think Lindsay would have done what Tolu did at the end. I really truly don't know Lindsay, and I'm friends with Lindsay. Um, like he's just like we didn't know what Lindsay was going to do because she was acting really erratic in the 24 hours. She was like so convinced that like we wanted to keep Tolu around, and we were like, dude, she's the next one. We're clipping out of the house, man. We're still going to go down the order, whatever. But it got really kind of convoluted because Tolu was like when we got rid of Winnie, she folded like a lawn chair. She was crying, and we felt bad, man. Like, you're talking about three empathetic guys that were like, we don't want anyone to feel bad. Let's work through it. But then as we kind of like tried to help mend relationships, which it doesn't show any of that, Lindsay started to like go crazy. And that's why she comes outside. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. And we're just like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Like, she's like, who are you getting rid of? We're like, Tolu. Like, it hasn't changed. But we were shocked, man. But Gaspar told me and Brian right away, so we already knew. Yeah, I'm sure that shocked everybody. They're like, "What the frick?"
Julie was also kind of in that same boat. You know what I mean? When she reveals to you guys that she took that $25,000, there was a big dynamic there that kind of shocked me.
Yeah,
Obviously, watching it, hearing that, what was that? Because you guys were close. Obviously, you guys were
yeah,
close. That one is like I thought possibly could have been a deal breaker. Obviously, it wasn't because of how the
yeah.
whole house was unfolding. Maybe you were a little bit worried about how maybe she kind of teams back up with the girls, and then maybe you guys are. Was there strategy there in ensuring that you guys didn't have that back and forth there?
Yeah, so there's Julie was strategy the whole time. People ask me like, "Did you really like Julie?" I said, "Yes, I genuinely like Julie. We had a great connection. We both said to each other multiple times, like, if one of us weren't in the house, it wouldn't have been as fun because we always wanted to have fun, hanging out, having drinks, chilling. Not everyone was like that, and so we really kind of complemented each other from a certain energy perspective. So we definitely had connection, but liking Julie was also very tactical strategy for me to put a wedge directly between her, Winnie, Tolu, and Grandma Jay. And it did exactly that as you see parts of it unfold. I did that whole thing that way because if you put five girls in a room and the only thing that they're like, we're going to leave this together, and the only thing that really connects them is their femininity, that's not going to last long. So when me and Julie had this good relationship, Julie's like, well, I can't vote for you and I can't vote for you. And then they just started to implode. And eventually their house of cards just started falling in place. And it actually worked to our benefit a lot.
Yeah, I agree, and it was good. So, and then let's talk about the finale, right? You kind of get to that scenario where the voting is happening. Was there any thought in that moment between you, Brian, and Gasper and even Julie, to eliminate Tolu at that moment, at the final scene?
So how that scene played out is we had these little cliff scenes where you see us looking at our cards. Basically, the person that we picked in that card locked us in for that card. So the moment that someone, say, for example, chose share, you couldn't change your card. You couldn't change the name on your card because all the other cards were taken. So you couldn't change. So we had everything planned out. And then this is what a lot of people don't miss. And the cast, I call a spade a spade. I don't know how my castmates are calling it now, man. I got nothing to hide, like, because I just call bullshit when I see it. But we must have had 10 to 15 different conversations with Tolu, looked her in the face, had our arms around each other, holding hands, like, God. And I was like, guys, we can do this. The money, it's good. The pot just kept growing. So I was like, if we leave this together, it can be so good. And Tolu unequivocally looked us in the face and, guys, I will not take any money. I will not betray you. I will stick with you to the end. And then she goes in the vault. And by the way, she was the first one in the vault. The way that the vault worked was we went in by order. So all 5 of us went in. If the first person went in there and said, I want to take all 25K, and then I went in there as number 2 and said, I want 25K, the first person would have taken it anyways, and I couldn't have taken anything. Tolu was the first one in there, and she took the money. People are like, well, why can't you understand her position on, like, she maybe felt like she was going to get eliminated. All right, you're talking about the 3 most trustworthy, loyal, integrity people in the house, and a girl, Julie, who said she would never vote Tolu out of the house. She had nothing to fear. As much as she likes to be on this 15 minutes thing of fame of saying, like, I was worried and put family first before friends. I was like, yeah, but if you put your friends first in this situation, your family's going to come out first because there's no reason to take the money. I am telling you, I'm telling the audience, she told us so many times she wasn't going to take that money and she was going to stick it out in the end. But then, you say this is a game. And for me, then it got really personal with some of these girls because there were many personal attacks on the show that they never show. And then Tolu going to the Vulture. And when you read some of these articles, she goes to these big, big news magazines is saying that had I not stolen that $25,000 in this article, she wrote verbatim quote was like, I would have gotten rid of Jake right away. Because the moment we found out she took the money, because obviously you can do the math in her head. We're all looking at each other like, what the wait, it was 268. Now it's 200, what, or 43 or something. We're like, damn it, someone took the money. Instantly, we all knew it was Tolu. We're like, son of a bitch. And then so then I'm like, oh no. And then Julie looks over me and she's like, what's Tolu going to do? And Gasper's like, dude, she's going to get rid of you. And I'm like, oh no. Like you can no way. But come to shoot, she didn't. She's like, I want to share. And then we had to do that fake scene of all of us celebrating when I guarantee you what happened after that. We were not celebrating. We were pissed at Tolu because she lied to us after talking to her for like 100 times about not doing this. But we definitely thought, like I thought for sure, my castmates thought that she was going to get rid of me. But then she comes out in this article saying she would have gotten rid of me if she didn't steal that money for herself. None of it made sense. No one sees that. But at the end of the day, I really do think America does see it. And they're like, okay, yeah, that she hadn't changed at all. We look kind of like dumbasses for believing her. But again, America doesn't see the countless conversations we had. If they would have seen her promise us the way she promised us, dude, she would look so much worse, man. But they don't show that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's I think a lot of people don't fail to remember. Every
Right.
single one of you people on these reality shows are human beings. That's one thing that people forget all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because whether rightfully so, people do paint themselves to be villains. People embrace the villain post show and go on that thing. However, the problem is you guys are human beings at the end of the day. I will say when I watched it, you don't see those conversations, obviously, that you say, not saying you didn't, not to say they didn't take place, but you
For
don't
sure.
see those conversations. Obviously, I don't hate the idea that Tolu took the money because I do think that there was a vibe from watching it back that you guys would have possibly voted around the aisle. On the flip side of that, I will say I thought for sure that you were gone the final episode. Like I thought for sure that your name was going to pop up. And I do think that there is some sort of strategy. She did get the 25K, and because she got the 25K, it was like, all right, cool. If I'm voted out on this final vote, at least I walk away with 25K. And I do think that's part of the thinking from her standpoint that I can see, again, game playing wise. But man, I thought for sure 100% that you were gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that to me is where I thought maybe there would have been a plan to possibly flip that.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky, you don't understand. Like we're sitting here. if she would have done that, it would have made her look so bad. Because again, what the show doesn't show a lot of, they talk about Brian's kid that he's trying to adopt and about Gasper's kids, but they never they paint me in a way. They don't talk about my son. They don't talk about the things that I'm doing within my church and supporting children's ministries and all this stuff. They don't bring up any of that stuff. So I'm just this other guy that doesn't matter. But we again had these conversations with Tolu, and the reason I truly believe it probably did look like she was going to get rid of me, but she doesn't, because she knows, like, I'm a single father taking care of my son, all the stuff that I'm involved in, Brian's kid, Gasper's kids. I think it would have left her in a space of like just feeling terrible, because knowing like we had probably the best why in the house to be there, out of everyone. That's three guys, and the three guys that were committed to getting the genuinely toxic people out of the house versus everyone else just wanting to get people out because they rubbed them the wrong way. Like, we had definitive reasoning behind what we were doing. But hey, man, I'm glad she didn't get rid of me. So
Right. Yeah. You still walked away. You still walked away,
yeah,
not empty handed. It's definitely looking back on the scene. I mean, obviously it was a smart decision on her part, because obviously there is a embracing a villain side of things that you would have had to dealt
for
with
sure.
by getting rid of you in this final moments, especially after taking $25,000. You know what I mean? Taking the 25K and eliminating you. And the thing about it is, I don't hate the taking the 25K. I think it was a great strategic play just in case to have
Yeah.
you made it this far. You either walking away with, if you potentially walk away with nothing, that's
Yeah.
that. But we've talked a little bit about how, and you've mentioned some things that haven't been shown
Yeah.
in the filming. Is there one thing in particular when you watch it back that you wish would have been shown that didn't get shown?
Yeah, there were two interviews that I had that I wish they would have really shown. One was right after we did the leadership trust lineup thing, whatever. And the producers pulled me right back into the confessional right away, because I was breaking down. Like, I was like, I felt so bad. It doesn't show, they try to show me off as this like egotistical, strong guy, but I go into this confessional and I'm bawling my eyes out, because they equated it to a lot of things that I'd seen in Afghanistan and how I would judge my soldiers and people and friends that have been in my life. And I was just like, I would never do anything to hurt anyone like that based off of knowing them for like a day and a half. I would never line someone up and have to do that. And I wish that they would have showed a compassionate, empathetic, sympathetic side of myself that they never showed. And then right when I came out of there, I was berated by Julie. Lindsay came upstairs. It was 10:30 at night. I'm just trying to eat my dinner. Like, I'm just getting my dick kicked in, man. And then, the only person that showed me any remorse was Simone. And she was like, I know why you did what you did. And then a very similar interview at the very end of the show. My whole reasoning on why my decision-making process on keeping certain people in the house and I wish they would have showed this. They don't show the strategy behind it, because you had girls like Winnie and Tolu. It's like, it's a game, whatever. I tell them in this interview, and I'm tearing up about it, because I'm like, dude, imagine, people are saying this is the hardest experience that they've ever had to go through. And I'm like, how about try being deployed with some of your best friends and family overseas, and then they die, and then you come home to nothing. And you're gone for a year fighting in the most austere environments, developing these relationships. You're telling me that 3 weeks in a freaking mansion house hanging out with people is the hardest thing you ever done, and you wonder why I'm scrutinizing every move I make before I get someone out of the house? I'm used to being with a team and not just getting rid of people. These individuals in the house were just willing to get rid of people without even getting to know them. And I said, like, I've been battling stress, and I've been anxiety and depression for the past 2 years for a lot of things. And I'm like, I didn't want to get rid of people because I wanted to really get to know them before I made the decision to get rid of them, because I've actually lost people in real life. They never show that. If they would have showed that about my personality, people probably would have been like, holy mother. Like,
Right, this guy's not as bad as we thought he was.
yeah. And so those two things, I really wish they would have showed that. I think that would have painted things in a much different color.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have a stepson that was recently deployed, and he's in the army, and
So,
that's a first off, thank you for your service.
yeah, my honor. My
But
honor. Yeah.
second, it just there's a level of that's the hardest thing you've ever been through. Just like talking to him and
Yeah.
listening to some of those things and losing those people in that. It's definitely not the hardest thing you could ever go through. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
after watching it back, would you have played the game any differently knowing what you do now?
I've been asked that before, and I wouldn't have done it much different, to be honest. I saw how conversation shook out. I think, okay, no, that's not true. I probably would have eliminated. I said that's not true. Seen it run back. If I could do it again, I probably would have clipped someone out of the house almost every single elimination because and just gone with my gut and be like, yep, I don't have enough time to kind of delineate whether or not this person has a nice or evil personality. It's pretty much evil. I don't like who they are as a person, so I'm just gonna get rid of them. It's funny watching this back with other friends and family, and they're like, dude, I'd vote every time. And so you had your close little group of you, Brian and Gasper, and just start clipping people out left and right. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Being in that situation, I probably would have done that. I probably would have made stronger decisions really quickly. Again, that's not my background. It's not, I'm used to getting to know people, but this was a different type of scenario. So, yeah, if I would have done something over, I probably would have voted someone off damn near every time. Yeah.
And I think one of the things I think what I mean, I love the relationship that you and Brian have. Do you think that maybe Brian brought a little bit of a grounded approach to make you kind of because he was very like anti, I never want to vote anybody until it got to the
Yeah,
point where
I
he was
know,
like,
man.
all right, man. When he voted somebody for the first time, you just like, holy cow, it's gotten to that. You know what I mean? Because he was
So,
very like kumbaya, like I want everybody to walk away with money. But do you think that maybe he kind of brought a level of groundness to you?
well, no, so me and Brian were both kind of that way. We were both, I mean, we roomed together. Like first 5 minutes of meeting, we're like Marine Army, cool. Like we were both values, morals, ethics, completely aligned in terms that I will say, he didn't ground me. There were times I just felt like we should have been more aggressive as guys all together. Me, Brian, and Gasper, we were on this kind of like, let's not vote until we really need to because we're trying to really evaluate personalities, but the sharks were already swimming in the pool of blood. So it's like we had to make decisions. I felt like as the show went on, it was challenging not being with, and I love these guys to death. It was challenging being with not being with guys that were much more aggressive, like myself. Like, for example, going into the vault with Bryce. Like, I would have taken the 10K just to clip Mama J out of the house with him. But I'm talking to a millionaire who doesn't give a shit about money. So it's like, I'm kind of just like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. So I'm like, okay, let's put money back in the pot. But I would have been willing to do that and vote her out right there. Because at that point, I was ready to cast votes left and right when it came to there but it doesn't really show that because I was so sick of the kinetic energy that Mama J had in the house. I knew when he was very manipulative with the girls and Tolu was just running her mouth 24/7 and Julia was whatever. But like, yeah, it's kind of how that fell apart. I felt like we were on the same line, but I wanted to get much more aggressive as time went on.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's funny to me because like there's a lot of things like Bryce's secret. There's a lot of different things that people say that happened or say they did. And I'm like, I would have probably, if I'm in the vault by yourself, and I don't think you weren't ever in the vault by yourself until the end, right?
Right,
Right.
right.
So you were never put in a kind of a position to like really. I would have never came out and told everything, the truth about what was in the vault. I would have made something completely up, probably. And that's just maybe the strategy in me and watching all of these
I
reality shows.
agree.
Me, I would have walked out. Yeah, they said if somebody got eliminated, I got 20K. So y'all do with that what y'all want to. You know what I mean?
I would have
Like,
lied. I would have been like, yeah, we
yeah,
just made 20K, but we got to make sure like 5 people don't vote at the next. I would have like, yo, I just pocketed 20K.
yeah, exactly. What about, hey, I told them that you, and you couldn't vote. I just did this because of extra. But yeah, it's definitely funny to think about it. All right. Final question for you. Would you go on another reality show?
Absolutely, I would go on another reality show. So obviously single, right? So I'd be happy to go on the dating show would be pretty fun. I think like a Love Is Blind or it's one of those fun dating shows. For so long people are like, dude, bro, you should go on The Bachelor. Like try The Bachelor. Um,
I
anything
think
like that.
Perfect Match would be perfect for you.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect Match would be really cool. I know they got a new season coming out this year. That would be a fun, really. I think I would have a lot of fun being on. And actually, I met a lot of those cast members when we were down in LA a couple of weeks ago. But I'd also probably do something. I'm not big on survival shows per se, but Survivor, I know that's clearly a survival show, but not so much in the way that I think people perceive it to be. I wouldn't mind doing that because it's a lot of the same strategy, but it's only one person that comes out alive out of there. but or maybe even something like MTV's A Challenge, anything physical. I understand I'm a fitness guy, but I think the dating shows would suit me better personally. Maybe the fun shows like that. I don't know, but yeah, totally. I would definitely be open to it in the future if something I was blessed to have that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think there's, and then the other one is the other one I was thinking about. I was like thinking about this when I was like, let me wait to see his answer. But I think The Traders is another one that I think that you would be really
Yes.
good at. That show's
Yes.
fantastic, man. That show is
Yeah. I
insane.
started watching a few of those, and
Yeah,
people mentioned that too, man. You should go on the trade because it would be a completely different ball game. Having a taste of this and then seeing that, you'd be like, oh, okay, like I know what I'd start to do, you know? So for sure,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, Jay, where can everybody find your stuff on social media, and kind of keep active with you post show?
Absolutely. So obviously, my name is Jake Chocholous. You can find me on Instagram at Jake Chocholous, CHOCHOLOUS. And then on TikTok is one of my really large followings as well. It's at Man Up Daily, but you can also find me at Jake Chocholous, and also YouTube. Jake Chocholous, my YouTube channel. So I do a lot of these podcasts like these, and I talk about crazy stuff too. So you guys can find me at those are my three primary platforms. I'm on a lot of platforms, but those are my biggest platforms at the moment. So
Yeah, folks, and I'll link all of his stuff in the podcast notes here. Jake, thank you so much for your time today, man.
yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man. Have a great rest of your week. It was an honor to be on the show, my man.